Thank you for tuning into the Generational Gauntlet Top 5 Faves. This is the podcast where we give you our top 5 on a topic with a generational twist to it. My name is Matt Lambert, and I'm the host of this podcast. Each week, I bring in a guest who's from a different generation than me to discuss or debate our top 5 on a selected topic. Today, we are covering a topic that is definitely generational. What were the best 5 technological advances of your childhood? I'm a millennial, so for me, we're talking late 80s into the early 2000s. On the podcast today, I have Steve Harley, who's a Gen Xer. Steve and I have known each other for about 10 years. He was my minister at a church in West Virginia when I lived there. So, Steve, I appreciate you jumping in here today. What decades are we talking about for you as a Gen Xer?
Yeah, so I was born in 77, so we're talking 80s and 90s. I graduated in 1995 from high school.
All right, so most of my friends in my phone have a nickname and an image that symbolizes them. And Steve's image is Wesley Snipes as Blade. Steve and his wife have not aged a single day since I met them back in 2015. I've joked that he might be a vampire, and that's why his photo is a vampire.
I
Steve is
appreciate that.
also I was going to say, that's some major props to you.
Sure.
Steve is also a fellow Buckeye fan, and we are recording this after last weekend's game against that team up north. Steve, how are you feeling about the win?
Still a huge smile on my face. That was amazing. Amazing.
Absolutely. Steve, I was afraid when we selected this topic that you might say the stuff from your childhood was like the Model T Ford or the Telegraph. And then I realized that the Buckeyes needed one when they were playing Michigan since they cut the communication on the sidelines. Do you think that was intentional?
I wouldn't put it past them. And that's all I'll say. I'll give a wink like Ryan Day did.
Well played. All right. So if you are a first-time listener, this is how the podcast works. We've each prepared a top 5 list. Neither of us have heard the other's list. Steve will start things off. He'll give his number 5 and his reason why it's number 5. I'll give my number 5 and the reason, and we'll go back and forth like that until we get to each of our number 1s. So without further ado, Steve, I'm going to hand it to you. What's the number 5 best technological advancement of your childhood?
Yeah. So number 5 is a little weird because I didn't have it very much of my childhood. So it would be probably number 1 in a different era, but it is number 5 just because it came towards the end of mine, and that would be cell phones. Just starting to come out, not just car phones, cell phones. I didn't have a pager, and none of these were not smartphones. But yeah, right as I was finishing up my childhood, they were starting to get into people's hands a little bit more. And obviously that was just such a huge deal, becoming a precursor to so much of what we have today.
Cell phones will definitely be on my list as well, but as you mentioned, generationally, it's going to be a little higher for me.
Right.
My number 5 is the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
As a millennial, video games were a huge part of my childhood. I remember the Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, and then PlayStation 2 dropped when I was a teenager. I looked it up on Google. It rolled out in 2000 in the United States, and I got my system in 2002 for Christmas. I was
Nice.
literally so happy that I dove into my dad's arms as if we were celebrating a national championship. Steve, did you ever play the PS2?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What were your games on there? What were you playing?
I mean, it kind of is going to lead into some stuff, but yeah, Madden and NCAA
All right.
football. Those were my games.
NCAA was mine as well. And
Yeah.
while I was in high school, we would have parties at people's houses
Mhm.
where we would literally play NCAA football from 8, 9 o'clock at night till 3 or 4 in the morning.
Yep.
So that's why it's number 5 for me. All the nostalgia, getting to kick it with my friends. Even my dad would jump in and play. PS2 was like the highlight of video games.
Nice.
Steve, I'm going to hand it back to you to hear your number 4.
All right. So number 4 for me would be I have the CD player, like especially the Discman. So yeah, I mean, just incredible the jump in quality from the cassette tape to the disc, the CD. Uh, it's like you were there, right? The quality, it was amazing. Now they really stunk for going on a run because they would just skip all over the place. But yeah, the CD player and the disc man to make it portable.
It's funny, Steve. We just had this conversation with Nora this week about
Yeah.
CD players, and she could not understand why it skipped when you ran. And then I explained it, and she's like, "Why are you carrying that bulky thing around?" I could not wrap her mind around it as a kid today, what we were carrying around and listening to.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first CD on that thing?
Oh
Like, what was your
gosh.
first CD you
No,
owned?
I don't remember. I'll make fun of myself here. One of my favorites was Boys to Men. Yep.
I have no follow-ups.
I didn't think you would.
All right, my
uh,
number 4, a little bit more broad or wide-ranging, and it's the World Wide Web. The
okay.
World Wide Web officially launched in 1991, and by
Hmm.
93, it was generally available to the public.
Right.
Obviously, the internet has been a complete game changer. I think we could both agree for good
Uh-huh.
and for, unfortunately, a lot of bad. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to lean towards the good. I remember as a kid, it allowed me to do research for school. I could
Hmm.
chat with my friends online. I got an email address and thought that made me official. Um, my grandfather used to let me watch his stocks for him while he was at events. I don't know why you let an 8-year-old do that, but okay. And being from West Virginia and the fact where it's too cold and too dark to go do stuff during the winter, it was my saving grace to get on the internet
Yeah.
and play games online and connect with my friends that way. So that's number 4 for me.
So you mentioned email addresses. I'm just really just picking on myself today here as I go back through this and talk about how dorky I was. So, would you like to know what my first email address was?
I would love to hear it.
I was in college and decided to be funny, and obviously I never used this when I started making a resume, but my first email address was extra instead of the extra. It was just xtra. Extra buff at hotmail.com. Mind you, I was a 140-pound cross country runner.
I'm gonna give you props though. You were seeing into the future because when I met
Right.
you, you were buff. So there you go.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's hilarious.
All right,
All
man. What's
right.
your number 3?
Number three. So it's funny, some of our stuff really does intertwine with one another. But mine's just a little bit older. So I have gaming systems. So it would have started off with the Atari and then Nintendo. And then for me, PlayStation. So PlayStation 1. So
Hmm.
yeah, I kind of moved up in that direction. And I was always late. I was always late in the game. Like when I got my Nintendo is after the Super Nintendo was out. But yeah, I played a lot of Super Nintendo at my friends' houses, but yeah, Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis was out too. I didn't really play that one very much. PlayStation, Game Boy, um, loved on the Nintendo, loved Tecmo Bowl, and then Super Tecmo Bowl. And
Okay.
then on the Super Nintendo, my friends and I played a lot of Street Fighter 2. So
Oh, that game
video
was
game
dope.
systems. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm realizing we had some of the same things we were doing, just
yeah.
probably a little bit different in age.
Right.
A little bit older for
I
you, a
just
little
had
younger
the
for me.
8-bit. You had a little bit more, not high res, but getting there.
All right, my number 3, home computers.
Mm,
I don't remember a hard date for this, but in the 1990s, people started to get home
mhm.
computers. It became more common to have one in your house.
Right.
And I know this blends in with the World Wide Web, but back then, for any of my young people listening, you couldn't get to the internet without a computer. We didn't have
Right.
phones that did that. When my dad got one, he worked at a computer company. I was the first friend in my friend group to get a
Mm.
computer in their house. And I
Wow.
thought this thing was going to let me like open the doors, turn the lights on and off. It, I thought I was going to talk to it. and I was
Mhm.
ahead of my time because that's, Alexa,
Now you
Chat
do.
GPT, all that. Instead, my first thing I did on the computer was I did a research paper on Peru. A lot
Oh,
less
fun.
exciting than what I
Yeah,
thought I was
yeah,
going to do.
yeah.
Uh, but for the fact of how big of a game changer it was for my schooling, for my personal life, a home computer is number 3 on the list for me.
Nice.
What's your number 2?
Well, you're gonna laugh at this because we keep bumping into each other here. Number two for me was the personal computer. We actually had one in the '80s, though. So there was a. I didn't have this, but there was something called the Commodore 64, which was
Okay.
pretty popular. But then Atari actually made some type of personal computer, and we had a computer at my house. We didn't have a lot of money, but for some reason, none of my other friends had it. But I had a computer at my house. You could play Atari games on it too. Um, and it was the weirdest thing. We would write like code on it. All it would do is like make like funky, almost like screensaver type of things, but we would play around with that. And then in high school, uh, I bought myself, like to prepare for college, to finish up high school, I bought myself a Macintosh computer, and and I thought it was like way ahead of its time because it had a CD-ROM in it, and so I could put discs in it and stuff like that, and, that's when I was able to also get onto the internet, so, um, yeah, pretty crazy, but yeah, I had one early on, and then probably the type that you were starting to get, I was getting, like, late high school.
Okay. So I
Yeah,
do like that our list has a lot of crossover.
yeah.
And my
Maybe I'm
number
not as old
2,
as you think I am.
I think I had to ask you, are you a Gen Xer? I thought we
Yeah.
were in the same generation, so I was glad to hear we weren't. Uh, my number 2 was on your
Mhm.
list, and it's
Yeah,
cell phones.
yeah,
Uh, Cell phones were obviously around before the 90s, but we started to see them pick up some steam or availability to the general public during that time.
right. Not
Uh,
quite the Saved by the Bell, Zach Morris type of cell
yes,
phones by that point, yeah.
that thing's a weapon. Uh,
I know.
According to a Google search, in 1992, IBM introduced the first device with smartphone features like a calendar and email. In
Hmm,
94, they released that phone at a $900 retail value. In the late 90s, cell phones got smaller, they were becoming more common, and then obviously in the 2000s, we saw people start to carry those more commonly.
right.
Um, I got mine when I was 16 years old, and I don't know about you. Did you have like minute restrictions on your
Oh,
first cell phone?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, mine was emergency only. But the reason I put mine on there was because you had to mine was you paid per minute.
Yeah,
It was yeah, it was, like, in my car, and it was only for, like, emergencies. So, yeah, later it was like, "Oh, you can, free calls after 9 p.m.," and things like that, but
I was going to ask you about that. I remember mine had maybe like 100 minutes for the month, but I
yeah,
would tell all my friends, hey, wait till 9 o'clock and then I
right.
can call you for free. And then cell phone or the texting, I think it was you got to a certain limit. It was like 10 cents a text or something like
Yep,
that.
yeah,
So cell phones have come a long way.
yeah,
My parents gave me for emergencies because the first day I was driving, I knocked our mailbox over. I hit it with
hmm,
my 96 Lumina.
nice,
I ran into a bridge, a parking
ooh,
barrier in a garage, a parked car, a dead deer. I kept hitting things, so my parents gave me a cell phone so that when I ran into a ditch, I was gonna have some way to pick up and call the phone or call them on the phone.
Now, to
But
be fair, you grew up in West Virginia, and those roads are a little bit shifty.
I appreciate the respect. They are a little
Yeah.
crazy with the speed limit we allow, and they're just
The
cut through a
curves and
mountainside.
the yeah, and the severe drop off if you just go over slightly. Hmm,
But for all those reasons, just giving me that lifeline when I was driving like a madman, cell
yeah.
phones are number 2 for me. Steve, I'm very curious to hear what makes your number 1 technological advancement.
So, it's only number 1, and again, it was at the end of my childhood. It's only number 1 because of the influence it's had, and that would be, like, you had the World Wide Web, internet, the internet. I remember getting those AOL discs. and getting 1,000 hours of internet and yeah, chugging through those. So yeah, it was at the end, it was at the tail end of my childhood, but the incredible impact it's had, like you said, good or bad, uh, on what we have today. I felt like it just garnered that number one spot for me.
I think kids today have no understanding of us getting those discs in the mail and
Yeah.
being so pumped up that I have 60 hours of internet
Right.
use. And now people are doing that in like a week, just eating
Right.
that up on their cell phones.
Right. Yeah.
I have a similar one to your number one. You
Mm.
mentioned AOL discs. My number one is AOL Instant Messenger.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I list that because of the very personal impact it had for me. So in
Mm.
97, AOL launched its Instant Messenger app. And that meant that I could spend time in individual conversations with my friends or in chat rooms with them.
Mm.
Before I say why this is my number one, Steve, did you use Instant Messenger?
I did later, but that would have been, late college and, uh, early marriage. Yeah, had a
Okay.
little bit of that. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned marriage, and that's
Mm.
why this
Ah.
one's number one for me. So,
Yeah.
why this one makes it above cell phones is back in high school, my senior year, I get invited to this chat room. It's around the holidays, and I end up meeting my wife in this chat room. We went to
Mm.
high school together, but we went to
Yeah.
a large high school. We knew of each other, but we had never actually talked. And I start chatting with her. This says how old I am. I looked her up in the yearbook and I was
Right.
like, oh, this girl's really pretty. I'm gonna shoot my shot. So there's that song, Paul Russell's Little Boo thing, where he's like, I'm shooting my shot like 2K. So I did. And it worked. We ended up chatting till like 3 in the morning on Instant Messenger. We went on a date 2 days later, and we've been together ever since. And this was back
That's
in
awesome.
the end of 2003. So for me, that's why AIM gets the top spot because it helped me land the love of my life. So got to be number one. Steve,
Nice.
I got to ask you, any thoughts you have on my top five or yours or how they intersect?
No, I think it is funny how closely they intersect. Yeah, maybe because my early childhood didn't really have many technological advances, so they all
That's
came
a good
late.
point. They all came when I was a child.
Right.
Well, Steve, I appreciate you jumping on this episode with me. Thank you for everybody tuning in. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and let someone know to check this podcast out. Help us sway the algorithms in our favor. I want this podcast to cover topics that interest you. If you have a top five that you'd like us to rank, I take suggestions at generationalfave5 at gmail.com. That's generational, FAVE, the number five at gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in.